Yo, this is Heiko Sunfyah from his tiny studio in his flat. I see many people out there doing videos with free speech and talking. I try to do this now. I want to mention English is not my mother tongue. I'm a German speaker and we regularly only speak German over here, so I may have difficulties to get the right pronunciation and maybe sometimes problems to find words, but I will do my best. In this video I want to present to you a presentation I did called Musical Creation, and we will switch to the presentation soon. It is not finished yet. I rediscovered this work. I started a few months ago and I continued it today, and it may still include some mistakes and typos as usual, and is not finished yet, but I want to introduce it to you so you can go through it with me and give me some feedback. Well, I got only a tiny audience on this channel, maybe I think a little bit above 60 subscribers, and most of them no longer watching my videos. And so let's see who will find this, who will resonate with what I'm talking about. It is about music and the scientific background. What is happening in music? What is the key elements of music that make a musical presentation possible? And I start with dimension 0. That is new music. That is the absence of music. This is a break, if you like. And then go through it with dimension 1, 2, 3, where we build up the musical system, starting with a single sound. And yeah, I will not explain it all now, but we go into the presentation and I will read it out, maybe add some details where I think it's necessary, and yeah, let's start. I will switch screen and then we go through the presentation, Musical Creation. Okay, here we go. We see the title Musical Creation, the first page of my presentation, and some symbols I invented or used. Actually the presentation was only finished till the double cross, and the other chapters are still hidden. I have not worked them out yet. So let's go into it. The creation story of music. Dimension 0 is the number is the number 0, right? In geometry we can depict it as a dot, because a dot has no dimensions. In physics we would say it is some kind of emptiness, the absence of anything. In acoustics we would call it silence, the absence of any kind of noise or other sound event. In music we would depict it as a break, so no instrument is playing anything, no singer is singing. It is the absence of any music. The symbol for this dimension is, as you see above, the dot. Dimension 0 is the absence of any musical performance. The result is silence or a musical break. The element of musical breaks is part of any musical performance. A pausing instrument enables other instruments to step into the foreground. A drum beat with its bang-alike sound produces gaps of silence between two adjacent hits. However, we require more than silence to make music. A Dimension Zero song score could look like this. You see, there is not a lot happening in Dimension 1 because there is no sound, there is no music, it is just emptiness. So we switch over to Dimension 1, which of course has the number 1. In geometry, the only object with Dimension 1 is the endless line. We can only move forward or backward on an endless line. It has only one dimension. In physics, we find it in time and vibration. Obvious, time, if you imagine a timeline, it is an endless line with past, present and future. And we also call it vibration because we can create vibration by time, which will be shown on the upcoming slides. In acoustics, we simply call it sound. It is the counterpart to silence. There is something we can hear. In music, we will describe it as sound in time. The symbol for this dimension is circle, because a circle is also an endless line, so I used it as a circle. As a symbol, sorry. The first two things music requires are time and sound. We can imagine time as one endless line with direction. For its measurement, imagine one endless periodic sound marking evenly dots on the timeline based on its period. We see the timeline with the dots. We have one dot that is the present, and before that we got the past and upcoming future. We find this concept represented by a ticking clock. Each tick is a bang-alike sound event marking one point in time. As we know, time measurement originates from astronomy, observing circular movements in space. A day is based on Earth's rotation around itself, a year on Earth's rotation around the Sun. A month inspired by the Moon's rotation around the Earth. Hours, minutes and seconds are further subdivisions of the day. While the more complex concept of years, months and weeks is of less interest for musical performances, we look at linear relationships between smaller time units. 1 day equals 24 hours, 1 hour equals 60 minutes, 1 minute 60 seconds, 1 second 1000 milliseconds, and 1 millisecond 1000 microseconds. 1. The ticking clock corresponds to the evenly beating of a drum with 60 beats per minute. We call this basic rhythm time pulse, and a representative score could look like this. Physically, we find it represented in an undamped vibration with period. That is not the wavelength. I looked that up. Sorry for this mistake here, but we call it the period of 1 second. This is corresponding to a sine tone with a frequency of 1 Hertz. The human ear can hear frequencies from 16 to 20,000 Hertz, so we would not be able to hear it. Both concepts, the concept of a subdivided timeline by 60 beats per minute, hits, or the sine vibration with frequency of 1 Hertz, fit towards the concept of time. This is for the sine function is based on movements on a circle similar to planetary movements, and the time pulse is equal to 1 Hz wavelength. The relation between a sine wave and the movement on a circle is depicted below. It also shows the cosine function that is actually a phase shift of sine. So let's explain that quickly. We got alpha, it is called here, is actually the time preceding the timeline, and now we got here the sine function with its amplitude crossing at this point and finishing at this point, and it is repeating. It would continue this way over time, and we get this line by the red line over here when we move on the circle. Same for the cosine function, it is the green one. This line is this green line over here when we move on the circle. So we go to the next dimension. Dimension 2, number 2. Geometry, we now got a plane because we can move in 4 directions, not only forwards and backwards, also 2 more directions. And in physics I called it height because we now have next to the time in a second dimension where we can move in. I called it height. We later see we will also add more dimensions like this that will make the room. In acoustics I call it amplitude. That is, if you remember the sine function, how far the height of the sine wave, if you like. And I also call it frequency of a tone. In music, this concept gives us tempo, tone pitch, and volume. So 3 aspects now created in dimension 2. The symbol for the dimension is the cross. We got 2 lines that symbolize 2 endless lines which will create a plane. So yeah. The new dimension we could also call scale. First, concerning our drum beat, if you remember, we can scale it by the concept of tempo over time. Tempo is basically a number that tells us how many beats are evenly distributed within 1 minute. While we call the 60 beats per minute drum beat explicitly time pulse, now we call it in general pulse regardless of its tempo. Second, for our comparison with undamped vibration, tempo changes are similar to changing the sound wave's frequency. This frequency is also called pitch of the corresponding tone. Third, this second dimension is also represented in the amplitude of our vibration. We can also scale it and create louder or quieter sound. We call this acoustically the volume of a sound. Now all 3 settings go well with the physical concept of height, as we colloquially speak of high or low, tempo, tone, or volume. We take a closer look now at what happens if we double a given tempo. Let x be a tempo and 2x double tempo, then it would look like this on the timeline. Dashes are beats of x sequence and 2x sequence combined. So every mark here, where's my mouse? This is the 2x sequence. But if you only take the dots, if you take the dots, they are only of the only of the two X sequences. So let's say the X sequence is actually those dashes, dum, 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 dum. And if you take those together, you got the 2x sequence. Dum, 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 dum. Okay. We also call the dots, this one, intermediate hits regarding the x sequence. They evenly divide the time period between two dashes by 2. When we measure the time period between two adjacent dashes, it gives the reciprocal of tempo x. The time span between two adjacent markings, that means dashes and dots, gives reciprocal of tempo 2x. It's similar to the relationship between frequency and period of a vibration that we look at soon. The concept lays the basis for what we call rhythm. We can now double tempo again and get a new tempo 4x, and double again 8x, 16x, 32x, 64x, and so on. This lays the foundation for note lengths in our score, but we will discuss this with the upcoming dimension. So just down here you see 1/2 is described as tempo x, then the quarters have 2x, the 16th 4x, the 30 seconds, and so on. Sorry, these are 8th, 16th, 32, 64, 128. Second, now let's look at our vibration and what happens when we double frequency. In dimension 1 we started with an unhearable tone with frequency of 1 Hz. When octaving it, and that is iterative doubling of frequency, we get 2, 4, 8, 16 and enter the region where our ear can actually hear the tone. Now very common in music is tuning instruments in relation to a concert pitch of 440 Hz. We keep up octaving and get 32, 64, 128, 256, 512 to get closest to this frequency. Now we go on 1024, 2048, 4096, 8192, 16,384 and with 32,768 we got the last one already outside of our hearing field. We summarize. The octaves of 1 Hz within our hearing field are lowest 2 to the power of 4, these are 16 Hz, and highest 2 to the power of 14, 16,384 Hz. In between we find 9 more octaves we can hear, so in total 11. The concept of octaving a frequency will later lay the foundation for all tonal systems. Third, finally we have a short look at the amplitude of our vibration. We can increase the amplitude to make the corresponding tone louder or decrease it to create a quieter tone. A human ear can hear sounds from 0 decibel to 130 decibel. Last number is the pain threshold. Above it, we are no longer able to hear it but take serious damage by it. We have to explain the unit decibel as it's actually not the measurement of the amplitude created by a musical oscillator, like for example the vibration of a string. The human ear does not have a linear comprehension of sound volumes but close to logarithmic. This is why also the unit bel is a logarithmic unit to come close to the subjective impression of volume. In musical scores, the volume of a song is defined by the dynamics. So we have from softest to loudest, pianissimo, which is very soft, then piano, soft, mezzo piano, medium soft, mezzo forte, medium loud, forte, loud, and fortissimo, very loud. We summarize and lay out three manifestations of the second dimension that can also be described as scale or height. Aspect title, tempo. No entry for the vibration, but we got the unit beats per minute, and the reciprocal is the time between two beats. The range of the beats per minute unit are 10 to 320, and the range of the reciprocal are 187.5 milliseconds to 6 seconds. Foundation for rhythmics. Now, next aspect title is the tone pitch. That is the frequency of the vibration and has the unit hertz, which is actually the repetition count per second. The reciprocal is the period, and we also said wavelength is not correct because we are talking about vibration and not about sound waves at this point. So forget that, it's just period, and the range is 16 to 20,000 hertz. The reciprocal range is 50 microseconds to 62.5 milliseconds. It is the foundation for melodics and later also harmonics. Final aspect title is the volume. That is the amplitude of our vibration in the unit decibel. We need no reciprocal here. The range is 0 to 130 decibel, and it is the foundation for dynamics. So, we proceed with dimension 3. Sorry, I got heavy hay fever over here, so I got this itchy feeling in my throat and had to drink a little bit. Dimension 3. The number is 3. In geometry, we would create a room with 3 dimensions. And in physics, we add the dimension depth. Depth. This is what I told you about pronunciation. I have to practice this. In acoustics, we introduce the relations between 2 tones. In music, this corresponds to the tempo, the pitch, and volume change. The symbol for this dimension is the star. I used it because 3 lines, like 3 dimensions, very simple. Okay. Dimension 3 enables the musician to become creative. In the previous dimension, we chose the overall tempo of a pulse beat, the frequency of a tone, or the general volume of our sound event. Now we bring up the new dimension as changes to each aspect while playing. First, we can in or decrease our tempo. We can also play double time or faster. This lays the foundation for the realm of rhythmics as we become creative in playing adjacent beats that no longer have the same duration of silence in between. Second, for our vibration we will change the pitch of the corresponding tone while playing, so we get 2 or more tones within a given time period. We will start multiplying a frequency with rational numbers unequal to 2 that create new tones between 2 adjacent octaves. This lays the foundation for the melodic realm and later the harmonic realm. Third, we start changing the volume of the tone or other sound event while playing. we bring up crescendos and decrescendos, emphasis and more. The first thing we can make with our pulse is to increase or decrease evenly in tempo. This is, for example, found on the musical score as accelerando or accelerando, I'm not sure, respectively retardando. So just to show you, an accelerando would be getting faster, and retardando would be getting slower. There are more variations of this idea. We give a few below and also show the overall names of beats per minute tempo intervals. So if you're interested in this, pause the video and read through it. I will not go through it. We have here different beat per minute and how it is called usually. And the same for the tempo changes. Accelerando we already had, and retardando gets slower, and there are more things like that. You can look through it by yourself. Oh, this one we should oh sorry, I got to go backwards, and because I quoted, doppio movimento is double speed. So we're doubling the speed. Now I related this here, so I just showed you. Now doppio movimento is actually what we already did when we doubled our tempo in the previous dimension. If you remember, we got the x, the 2x, the 4x and so on. Now we bring a new change into our basic rhythm called pulse by combining normal tempo and double tempo. It could look, for example, like this. So you got a half note, 2 fourth notes. It would sound like this. We see two concepts here we've not explained before: note length and bar. Let x be a given tempo. We first must say what kind of note length should be played in tempo x. Then we get the tempo of all other note length by multiplying or dividing x iteratively by 2. To understand this sentence, let's name each note length first. So it's a little bit cryptic what I wrote here. Actually, if you look at this, a bar is actually this unit, again this unit, and it consists of, in this case, because we have 4 fourths here, 4 quarter notes, but here we have a half note, so a half note is taking place of 2 quarter notes. This we got 4 fourths in here. So I try to show in this below, we got the 4 fourths bar defined, and we put one full in there because a full are 2 halves are 4 quarter. So it already fills up the first bar. Now the second we put in 1 half, 1 quarter, 1/8, and also have to add an 1/8 break to get the 4 quarter. Yes, these are 2 quarter, 3, and those together are 1 more quarter, so we got 4 quarters. Now it gets really cryptic. We got 1/16, 1/16 break makes an 1/8. 32nd break. Okay, you see it gets difficult when we look at it at the upcoming slides in detail. We quickly see a note is named by reciprocal numbers as depicted below. Also there are breaks shown that are named the same, so I just named it like this. This is 1 full, this is a half, a quarter, an 1/8, a 16th, a 32nd, a 64th, and a 128th. The same goes for the breaks. This is an 1/8 break, a 16th break, 32nd break, 64th break, 128th break. again we got here, oh, I forgot to, okay, this is another another 64th break, a quarter break, a half break, and a full break. Each space between two adjacent slashes, these are this one, this one, this one, is called a bar. We see when adding we see when adding the numbers, each bar has a value of 1 equals 2 seconds, 4 quarters, 8/8, 16/16, and so on. First and fourth bar are trivial. How do you say this in English? In German we say trivial. So trivial, I don't know. So they are really, don't have to explain those. Second, we can easily calculate 1/2 plus 1/4 plus 1/8 plus the 8th break gives 4 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1 in brackets divided by 8 gives 8/8, and this is 1, so it's correct. Now we go to the most complex third bar, and I wrote it down here. Actually, I will not read it out now, but if you calculate or add these rational numbers together, now we actually get the number 1 again, so it's correct what I wrote here. The first number 4/4 defines how many notes of which note length are within each bar, and it's called time signature. So I already said that. Okay. Other options are, for example, 3/2, 2/2, 6/4, 9/4. There are many possibilities. Now, a tempo x is given to one note duration, usually the one represented in the denominator of our time signature. So for example, in this case, quarter, you see here 4 quarters, is defined as 100 beats per minute. Then we can calculate the speed for each note duration. So the quarter is 100 beats per minute. You find it here or here, the break, the quarter break. Then the half is obviously 50, the half of 100, and the full note is 25, and so on. The eighth is 200, 400, 800, and so on. The reciprocal of tempo is actually the time period the note is played in minutes. Yeah, we have 100 beats per minute, so the reciprocal is how long the note is played in minutes. But we usually move in kind of seconds or milliseconds, so below the value is given in milliseconds with the definition of t being the tempo. We calculated duration, called d, by the 60,000 milliseconds divided by t. So these are actually mathematics. You have to look at it, maybe pause it and validate it, but it's correct. So if we illustrate the first 3 bars on our timeline, it looks like this. This is actually the full note, the half note. Here we have the quarter note, the 16th note, and the lines get shorter, you see? Or yeah, I think it's obvious. In comparison, you have this here again. It's not really aligning here, but okay. So for the summary, what we actually did was defining the concept of a bar by repeatedly binding a certain number of adjacent beats together. Then we scaled our tempo like half time, full time, double time, and so on in the required directions. We defined what kind of note is played in our tempo, and the time duration of all other note lengths is a result of this definition automatically. Now we can create rhythm by combining notes and breaks of different length within one bar. They all base on the original tempo multiplied or divided by 2. At this point we leave the concept of a simple pulse. Though it is still the underlying foundation of each rhythm, we now entered a realm where the musician has to become creative in when to play a note or a break, and of which length. The only thing he has to take care of, the sum of notes and pauses within... Sorry, there was another mistake. I think it's called pauses, right? Or is it called break? I'm confused now. So I mixed up the words here. Anyway, the sum of notes and pauses within a bar has to equal the value of the bar. This is what we calculated. And for sure he has to stick to the tempo of the underlying pulse. With this we entered the realm of rhythmics. In the previous, second. In the previous dimension we looked at an undamped vibration, respectively a sine tone, and iteratively doubled its frequency. We called the new tones octaves of our bass tone. Experimentally it can be shown on a single string, that is called a monochord. Dividing the string of length 1 in the middle creates 2 string parts, each of length 1/2, equals 0.5. Now the new... Why is there Now the new frequency of the vibrating half string is exactly 2 times the full string's frequency. So you see it here, the full string, length 1, frequency is 1, let's call it F. Interval name is the prime. Now we divide the string over here and got 2 parts of 1/2 and 1/2, and the frequency is doubling. So 2, the reciprocal of 1/2, gives 2F, and 2F on both sides. We call this interval that is created the first octave, and again the first octave. For each string segment the related frequency is the reciprocal of its length. Yeah, this is what I said, the reciprocal here, the length, 1/2, reciprocal is 2. For each string segment the related frequency is the reciprocal of its length multiplied with the base frequency F. Second, now we try other divisions of the full string and calculate their frequencies. So here we got a 1/3 and 2/3 division, and we again take the reciprocals and get a frequency of 3F and 3/2 F. So if you remember the no, that's not correct. Okay, this interval is called the octave of a fifth, and this one is called the fifth. Now let's try another division with 1/4 and 3/4. Then we got here frequency 4F, which is, as we know, the second octave. This is 1F times 2 gives 4F. And on this side we got 4/3 F, which is an interval we call the fourth. Now we compare the frequencies of all 6, also on the previous page, and get an order of 1, that is full string, 4/3, 3/2, 2, 3, 4. So looking at the frequency, the prime, the fourth, the fifth, the first octave, the octave of a fifth, and the second octave. The reasons for the names fourth and fifth are unclear at the moment, but what we can show is 3F is 2 times 3/2 F in brackets. So this is again the 2 factor. This is why we call this the octave of the fifth. And we also have 4F equals 2 times 2F in brackets. This is why we call this the second octave. Now we can add intervals by multiplying their frequency factors and subtract by division. First we summarize. We got here in the right order our intervals: prime, fourth, fifth, first octave, octave of fifth and second octave. And the ratio to full string is 1 3/4, 2/3, 1/2, 1/3, 1/4. And the frequency factor, of course, the reciprocal of these numbers: 1 4/3, 3/2, 2, 3, 4. Now let's add. Let's give an example. We take the first octave and add a fifth. That means adding is multiplying the frequency factor. 2 times, you see it here, 2 first octave, 3/2 is the fifth. 2 times 3/2 equals 3. And that is, oh wonder, the octave of a fifth. Now let's add fifth and fourth. 3/2 times 4/3 equals 2. We get an octave. Wow. And octave plus octave is obviously 2 times 2 equals 4, the second octave. Multiplying frequency factors always creates a larger interval. Now if we divide one factor by another, we create a smaller interval. Examples. We take the second octave, that is the 4, minus the fifth, so we divide 4 by 3.5. So we take the reciprocal of this and multiply. 4 times 2/3 are 8/3 are 2 times 4/3. 4/3 is here, so we got the octave of a fourth. Another example, third octave minus octave, it is 8. Oh, we have not listed it here. Obviously the third octave is again by 2, so 8. 8 divided by 2 equals 4, so we got the second octave over here. For division, make sure first interval is larger than the second, otherwise we get a negative interval that can no longer be created by a string of length 1. Let's look exclusively on further string divisions of the type 1x for x equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and so on. We discover the overtone series, a row of frequencies that exists within the sound of many instruments. Next to the dominant prime tone, other tones of the overtone series are hearable too, but quieter. The single volumes for each overtone are characterizing each instrument's unique sound. We don't go deeper into this one, just Google search overtones and overtone series. Second, when octaving overtones down until they lay between prime and second octave, that is iterative division by 2, some of them are close to the tones we use today in our equal tempered system. However, our tonal system is more complex than just using overtones. Its development took many centuries. The first 12 tones tuning system was created by, if the myth is true, Pythagoras. He already discovered the relations described on previous pages. To create his system, he added fifths and then octaving them back between prime and first octave if necessary. So you see all the calculation below. 0/5 is of course the prime, it's the tone where we start, has the frequency factor 1, and there is no operation. Now we can take 1/5, we remember this has the frequency factor of 3/2, and the final frequency is 3/2, we call it the fifth. Then we add another fifth, okay, we get 9/4. But we are now no longer in the first octave, we are now in the second octave, so we have to divide by 2 to go back into the first octave, get a final frequency of 9/8. And we proceed like this: 3/5, 4/5. We calculate this, look at the number, and check up, is it above 1, and if yes, how far? So this number is larger than 3. We have to divide by 2 to the power of 2 to go back into the first interval and to get this number. It's a little difficult, you have to check it up on other sources, maybe the Pythagorean tuning system, to understand this, but it's actually, you're adding the fifths and check up where they are in which octave, and then divide by 2 until they are back in the first octave. So all these intervals, I call it, get names. We go look at this later closer, and if you compare where is the position within the tone line, tone scale, if you like, you can order them by these numbers. So you start with the prime, which is the tone we start with, then comes the minor second, then comes the major second, then comes the minor third, where is it? There, then the major third, and so on. We see problems occurring with the Pythagorean tuning system. Basically all intervals are dissonant except octave and fifth. So dissonant means if you compare it to the overtone series, they are not the same as the tones resulting of the overtone series, but this is actually for our tonal systems. The fourth is already slightly different from 4/3, if you remember, and so are others. The difference between 12 fifths and 7 octaves we call Pythagorean comma. So yeah, if you're interested in this tuning system, just look it up, Pythagorean tuning system, and to get more into it. I found different explanations of the system. This is what was easily accessible for me, but there are other attempts where he goes down with the fifth and maybe some use the fourth. I really don't see through this, so I just took this one. So we will not go deeper into it now, but jump straight to the modern equal tempered tuning system. It is made of 12 tones where each neighbor tones have an interval of value of 100 cent. Cent is a unit that is calculated as followed. For an interval's frequency factor f, the distance to the prime in cent is 1200 times the second logarithmic of f. By its structure, only octaves are perfect compared to the overtone series. However, this system eliminates the problem of the Pythagorean comma and other issues of tuning systems that occurred between Pythagorean system and equal tempered system. The equal tempered system enables that we have a circle of fifths today that is closed, and we can play every song in 12 different keys and it still sounds similar. Now we got a little lost in the realm of tuning systems, so let's get back to our tone. We now have a tone system or tonal system where we can put tones into relations to each other by naming the interval. This lays the foundation for any melody. Again, the musician has to become creative and decide which tone he plays next, respectively which interval he gonna use. A melody is defined as a row of different tones. At this point we enter the realm of melodics. Third, now we can also change the volume while playing. Getting louder is a crescendo, or softer, decrescendo or diminuendo, or jump from one volume to another. Also, a single sound can include internal dynamics by attack, decay, sustain and release. Dynamics are also influenced by how many instruments play at the same time. More instruments, more noise. Being able to change the volume while playing finally created the realm of dynamics. Dimension 4. Number 4. In a three-dimensional room we have no real way we can visualize this in geometry, but in abstract mathematical constructs you would call it a four-dimensional room. In physics we introduce the dimension width. In acoustics we call it complex sounds, and in music polyphonics and harmonics. The symbol is the double cross, so we got 4 lines here symbolizing the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension creates greater complexity than simple rhythmics, monophone melodics and overall dynamics. It is physically depicted as width, for it is the missing room dimension next to height, C dimension 2, and depth, C dimension 3. Music is no longer a flat experience, but becomes like a room to move in. The main concept is polyphony. That means different sound events happening at the same time. First, in case of rhythmics, we take a drum set as an example, where the drummer's hands and feet, again, I guess gotta be T over here, right? Foot, feet, where the drummer's hands and feet play different rhythms at the same time. We call this complex rhythmics. Second, in case of melodics, we now play 2 or more tones at the same time. While 2 tones still mark an interval, 3 tones or more can form a chord, and we enter the harmonic realm. Third, for dynamics we can also play one instrument loud, underlined by a softer played second instrument. Also more than 2 instruments are possible. We call it complex dynamics. We see in 1 and 3 we need more than just one instrument. In 2 we need more than one tone. In the previous dimension only simple rhythms like the following were possible. So we got one drum, if you like, and that is playing. And so on. I will not play. I would do mistakes playing the entire thing now. Now we kill. We don't kill. Now we will combine several drums of a drum set, and each playing a different rhythm. So we got this one. We see the crosses are marking the hi-hat, so the symbols above, and below are the snare drum and the bass drum. In bar number 4 we also have high, mid and low tom. So we could split it into 5 individual instruments, each playing another rhythm. This example basically explains how dimension 4 brings the concept of complex rhythms or rhythmics. Second, concerning melodic, things are getting more complex. Playing 2 tones at the same time is already a polyphone sound event, but these tones are just forming an interval. We already started to explain the tonal system, but did not want to get deep into its historical development. So we just summarized the Western tonal system has 12 tones, so 13 intervals within an octave. They are named and ordered as followed. The prime are 0 half steps, and it's actually the same note. Then the small second has 1 half step, the large second 2, small third 3, large third 4, quarter 5, tritonus 6, the fifth 7 half steps, the small sixth 8 half steps, large sixth 9, small seventh 10, large seventh 11, and we have the octave with 12 half steps. Each interval has a certain character when both notes are played simultaneously. Some appear to sound more consonant than others. For example, seconds, tritonus, and seventh are more described as dissonant than prime, third, quarter, fifth, sixth, and octave. But it becomes even more complex when we start playing 3 notes at the same time. When the 3 tones form a third with its adjacent ones, we call the construct a chord. There are 4 types of basic chords. We start with the interval low tone to mid tone, then mid tone to high tone, and name it large third, remember 4 half steps, and the small third, 3 half steps, will give a dur chord. Now the other way around, small third and then the large third will give a moll chord. Then 2 small thirds, small third and small third, will give a diminished chord. And finally large third and large third will give an augmented chord. But also when we use no thirds, but for example a second and a fourth, we can create special chords. Large second, 2 half steps, and fourth, 5 half steps is the suspended 2 chord. The middle tone is suspended by a large second instead of a third. Similar, a fourth and a large second give a sus4 chord. The middle tone is suspended by a fourth instead of the third. To top of that, we can also use 4 or 5 tones simultaneously. To give a few examples, large third, small third, and small third are Septimen, we say in German, a 7th chord, or large third, small third, and large third give the major 7 chord. And let's take 5 tones. Large third, small third, small third, small third are the 9th chord. It's getting more complex here. Notice the number added to the name, so the 7 and the 9, relate to the interval name of lowest to highest tone. So if you calculate this, large third plus small third plus small third plus small third, you would get a 9. Or a 9th. So I don't know. Yeah, that is higher than an octave. We have not listed it, but it exists. And also the 7 in case of the first case here, you get a small 7th between first and last tone, and here you get the large 7th. You hear each chord has its unique character, and the topic is too huge to summarize it within a few slides. Just remember for your own research, with playing 3 notes simultaneously we entered the realm of harmonics. Okay, back at the cam. Wow, that was really weird. I have really difficulties speaking English for so long, and I know I spoke not very good. Oh my god. So this is what I'm working on, and thank you for watching if you watched. I'm messed up in my brain now, So let's see us later. Till then.